BG podcast number 72. Good evening, everyone. It's 8:30 on a Wednesday, and that means that it is time yet again for the podcast to go live. Shout out to some of the regular faces in the chat. I can see there's 36 of you waiting in the chat for this to go live. Some of the the regulars in the chat. So I hope everyone's doing well, and thanks as ever for tuning in and watching the podcast on a Wednesday night. Real busy show tonight, as is always the way at the minute with how busy the sport is. We're going to start looking back at last week's boxing, the Anthony Joshua fight and the undercard, and the reaction to that Sky Sports pay-per-view. We'll try and touch on Jürgen Brähmer versus Callum Smith. We'll look at some of the news in the sport of boxing. Frank Warren's developing December bill, the White versus the White versus Deontay Wilder saga. And then we'll look ahead to next week's boxing. We'll talk Wilder Stavern. We'll talk that undercard. We'll talk about Eddie Hearn's bill in Monaco. So lots and lots of stuff to get through. Already joined on the panel by Jet and by Jay. I understand Irish Tom will be joining very, very shortly. We're hoping Paul will be able to put in a cameo appearance later on in the show, although not got complete confirmation on that just yet. So yeah, let's begin without further ado. And I know a lot of people in the chat have been calling for it. I know, there's been quite a lot of rumors in the sort of hardcore boxing circles on YouTube. But Jay has spoken to us off air, and he wanted to issue a public apology to Carlos Takam, to the subscribers of this channel, for his ill-advised prediction that Anthony Joshua would stop Takam in rounds 1 to 3. So, Jay, without further ado, let me bring you in, mate, and the floor is yours. It takes a big man to do what you're about to do.
Thanks, Gossip. I appreciate it. I prepared a statement for today. So if you don't mind giving me a minute where I can just read my statement, just to clear up any social media beef, etc. there's been over the last couple of days, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how terribly sorry I am for getting a fight prediction wrong. I've not only let down my family, my friends, the BG podcast viewers, Mikey, Team Groves, Tony Knox especially, and anyone else I haven't mentioned. My fellow podcast pundits, Paul, Jetstream, Irish Troll, and of course our patron, Boxing Gossip. All the members of the worldwide boxing fraternity. Now, over the last few days, I've taken a long look at myself and asked how I could predict a fighter to win within 3 rounds with someone with such a poor knockout ratio. Failing to appreciate Carlos Takam's extraordinary draw against WBSS quarterfinalist Mike the Rebel Perez, and his ability to get punched in the face constantly without any effect. Yes, Anthony Joshua nearly defeated his opponent in the 4th round, but the bell saved Carlos Takam. But unfortunately, the metaphorical bell of punditry failed to save me from the count. I promise to do my best in the future to predict the exact seconds, the exact rounds, and the exact method a fighter might get defeated in. In closing, I'd like to say I'm sorry for all the distress I caused, but glad I managed to keep Irish Tom aroused over the last few days and make up for possibly his lack of activity that he suffers in the bedroom. And perhaps now he can move on from this and begin to reconstruct what life he actually does have away from Twitter. Hashtag Irish Fakeover. Thank you, Gossip. That's all I've really got about that.
Thank you, Jay. No, that's very, very good of you, mate. Boxing Gossip channel, we're big in, big on forgiveness. We forgave Sherry when he picked Glowacki. We forgave Paul when he picked Mayweather. Sorry, when he picked McGregor to beat Mayweather. And likewise, we will, of course, forgive you. We will forgive. One thing we cannot do, Jay, is forget. So you are on performance review, mate, and your predictions in the oncoming weeks will be monitored very closely. But there you go.
Seriousness.
Putting that to one side, Takam did go 10, and the main talking point is actually that perhaps he should have even gone further than 10J. Give us your take on a stoppage that will probably go down as what this fight is remembered for.
Well, first of all, I think Takam was obviously estimated by me. And it goes against everything that I say, because I'm always saying that a moving target is a hard target, and that is going to be a problem for any fighter. I could make an excuse for myself. I could say, well, Anthony Joshua was not at his best. The broken nose he possibly got was obviously affected him quite deeply because of the shock in his face, as you saw, the wiping of his face. There was issues there. He knocked him down in the fourth. The bell went pretty soon afterwards. Could that have possibly been a stoppage? I don't know. But Takam, for me, did really well, really durable. I don't think he won many rounds in that fight. I don't think it was what we expect from Anthony Joshua. I think maybe coming off the Klitschko fight could have been things in his head where it was an easy walkover or second album sort of syndrome. But they're giving the credit to Carlos Takam, moved up, good movement, and obviously, as you said, tonight to Anthony Joshua and showed failings in his game. Fortunately for there's not many fighters there in that division. Just come way too soon, but he was taking punishment. His eyes were cut bad. In the 10th round of a chip fight in such a big event, he should have really been go on. And again, it was stoppage by the ref. We've seen him do it before, so prize there. But it wasn't vintage. It was good by Takam. Takam was never going to win the fight, and that's all she, as everyone else predicted, that it would go a long way. I believe that because I had the notion that Joshua's power was that phenomenal, and that Takam and the other heavyweight fighters haven't really come up against that power. Takam can take a bigger punch than I personally thought.
Jay, the internet connection, mate, is bad. It's actually badder than it's been before. So that was audible, but barely.
I'll come off and come back on.
All right, mate. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jet in the interim. Jet, not the best of connections there, but kind of got the impression that all in all, Jay was saying in favour of the fight going on for a bit longer. Give us your take on this one, mate.
Yeah,
you're on.
Like, hello.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Jet.
Yeah. Is it coming through clear or?
You're loud and clear, mate. You're on form, yeah.
Yeah, I felt that the stoppage was premature. I mean, Takam was still slipping and riding the shots, so it was a tough stoppage. I felt like it could have gone on. Takam was, obviously he wasn't going to win the fight. I feel like the ref maybe had a influence from the doctor. Maybe he thought if the fight goes a bit longer and he's taking sustained punishment, then let's stop the fight. But I felt that done very, very well for someone who had 12 days notice, and he didn't do himself any harm in there. I'm not saying he would beat any of the other champions. Obviously he fought Parker's, lost him in a closer fight. Then the AJ fight, but Takam did really well. Probably deserved to go out, in the 12 rounds. But then again, you got to look at it and go, if he's taking sustained punishment, then maybe the ref should step in. It's a weird one. I did tweet out it was a weird stoppage. I can understand it from both sides. People who did want it stopped, people felt it should have gone on. So what I will say is the ref I thought was a bit overeager. And I think nowadays it's a kind of recurring theme in UK boxing, especially that the referees kind of jump in prematurely, or the judges kind of give the home fighter ridiculous sort of scorecard to preserve their credibility and interests. Especially with AJ obviously having the the undefeated record and all of his wins coming by knockout, they're probably thinking, let's keep that aura of invincibility in sort of in investing in Anthony Joshua, and getting the stoppage, even though Takam didn't seem. He was buzzed, but I didn't think he was on his way to going down, hitting the canvas or anything. He was still slipping and riding his shots, as I said. So it's a weird one. I felt it could have gone on at least for another maybe 15 seconds or something like that, 10, 15 seconds. But I can understand the people that say it should have it should have been stopped at the time, and other people who felt like it should have gone on. I can understand both points of view.
I hear you. The general consensus seems to be Joshua's performance was a bit flat, Jet. When Jay was talking, he referenced the injury to the nose. In my post-fight video, I put a lot of that blame down to his weight and the fact that he'd come in at a career heaviest, potentially also factoring in that maybe he was a bit more tentative after the Klitschko fight, having experienced being so badly hurt, etc. What's your take, Jet? Another theory would be that he was so scarred by the experience of being punched out that, he was conscious to leave a bit in the tank and not really be as explosive as normal, so that he didn't punch himself out and run out of gas again. What's your take, Jet? Firstly, do you agree with the consensus that he looked a bit flat and it wasn't peak Anthony Joshua? And if so, what do you think is the biggest factor?
Yeah, I thought he did look a bit flat, and I thought in regards to the second question, I thought there was a culmination of factors. So you talk about the nose. That's obviously a big factor. It does affect your breathing in the fight, but he still did fairly well for having that sort of his the last sort of 8 rounds for him. So he did fairly well for that, I guess. I thought he was very, very heavy. He was a career heaviest 254, was it, or something like that?
Yeah.
So he just looks like a bodybuilder, Yeah, I don't think that physique is made for a boxing ring, to be honest. I had people like Frank Bruno and those sort of guys who are heavy set and very muscular, but I thought Joshua there, I saw the jab coming out at times. It was a bit slow and a bit. Takam was wily there. He was quite, he was slipping shots very well, actually. I watched Ultra Tech Sports video, very knowledgeable guy. And, he gave a fair amount of credit to Carlos Takam. Felt he was riding the shots very well. And he was doing, little feints. It's sort of when he was getting backed up. And Joshua, maybe what you say about Joshua, he was a bit more tentative. I felt he was a bit more tentative also because of a late change of opponent. He was obviously preparing for a 6'6" or 6'5" heavyweight in Kubrat Pulev, not 6'7" like Tony Bellew says. Because I've heard that so many times in the commentary. I got bored of it. Commentary off after eventually. But yeah, I felt like obviously preparation wasn't ideal for him. Opponent, but yeah, he didn't look great. There's a lot of different factors I felt that played into that. It played a part. But who's to say he might perform the same against a I thought Takam obviously did stuff well, but there were things that there's a really good video I think doing the rounds on Twitter, and it showed doing this sort of feint and throwing the 1-2. Don't know if anyone's seen that, but it shows Joshua gets he gets sucked in sometimes, and he's obviously still working on things. I know he's still working on things in the gym, so maybe that's something to work on again. And or we'll see how he recovers in. Obviously they're not expecting him out again this year, but they'll probably put him out February, March time if he heals well. So a bit flat, but on AJ.
Appreciate that, Jet. We'll come back to you on the undercard and the rest of the Sky pay-per-view in a little bit. Let's try Jay again. Jay, give us a sound check, mate.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better, actually. Yeah, so we were just, I'm sure you heard what we were just discussing, some of the factors in Joshua's performance. Do you think this is a case that Takam maybe overperformed and performed better than a lot of people expected, or a lot of people probably didn't even know who he was, or do you think this was a case that maybe there was something a little bit off with AJ?
I think there's a little bit of both in that, really, to be honest. There's a number of factors. I think Takami's better, tougher, really, really, really tough. As I said, I think it's Joshua's second fight, his fight after the Klitschko and the big hoo-ha around that, and the excitement and the getting up and getting knocked down and at Wembley. And I think then with the change of opponent, and maybe he was a bit too confident, maybe overconfident that he can keep knocking people out, because it must be, it must boost your confidence when you beat someone like Klitschko in such a fashion, and then to come into a fighter. And so maybe a little bit overconfident, plus Takam probably thinking, well, this is a massive chance, to like really change the course of his career and the course of heavyweight boxing. Everyone wants to defeat the champion, and they always say, don't they, the hardest bit is not winning the championship. It's defending the title, and that's what Anthony Joshua's got to learn. But I don't know. Anthony Joshua didn't look the same. Anthony Joshua did look a little bit flat. There was that little bit of an injury, but it also showed holes that in Anthony Joshua's game that again have been exposed. So in that, really, what would the outcome be if they had a rematch? I'd pretty much say it would be the same outcome. I don't think there'd be anything different, because I don't think quite small for a heavyweight, and he's proved Takam, regardless of who's tough, and he stayed in there. And we're celebrating the fact that the guy got well beaten in a fight, but he's proved that when he hits that championship level, he doesn't come out on top. And I would be questions whether he would ever win a world title, with that style that he has. So, as for Anthony Joshua, as I said, there's definitely holes, but he keeps going. He keeps the record going, and he'll going to, I'm sure, be a lot more motivated for a fight against Wilder, or as we've seen Tyson Fury coming back, than he possibly was maybe for the late replacement that was Takam.
Yeah, definitely. I guess Takam's one of those guys who, he's a good fighter. He's a solid guy, but he's just sub-elite. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't quite have the technique. He doesn't quite have the power. Who would you like to see Joshua take on next, Joe?
Well, obviously, it's got to be Wilder, hasn't it? That's the one everyone really wants to see, because Wilder is seen as the other champion and the other possible contender for being the best heavyweight in the world. I'm sure that's exactly what Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua want, because they want to beat him. Then they want Eddie Hearn was very vocal afterwards about, I think it was before or afterwards, about Tyson Fury coming back and desperately wanting Tyson Fury back, because he knows, that is the fight. That's the one that would bring in Joshua's biggest payday and Eddie Hearn's biggest payday. So, that's definitely the fight they want. But, he's going to have to go through Wilder first to get that, because how long ever it's going to take Tyson Fury to get back. I mean, they're talking summer of next year. Whether he'll be ready for summer of next year, I'm not so sure. So then you've got to look at, Pulev. You've got to look at, I suppose, Irish Tom's favourite, Big Baby Miller. Maybe a Brazil rematch, depending on what happens with Molina at the weekend. Stavern possibly, if he wins against Wilder. So those are the options, but there is only really two fights that really excite the boxing hardcore, not necessarily the boxing casuals. But for me personally, is Wilder and Tyson Fury, just to really wrap up who is the #1 heavyweight in the world.
Interesting stuff. All right, Jay. Cheers for that. We'll come back to you on the undercard in just a second. 160 of you guys watching live. Many thanks to those who've already clicked the thumbs up button, but less than a third of you have actually done that. So please support us by getting a bit more visibility to this channel by whacking that thumbs up button now. And with that, I will take the time to let Irish Tom out of his cage. Irish, can you give us a sound check, please, mate?
Can you hear me?
Yes, let me just turn you up a little bit. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good stuff. Loud and clear, mate. Yeah, give us your take on this.
Well, I don't know. I made the great decision of going to a party and not watching any of that card live. So I was very amused to see how shit it was. You know, I'd killed a deer and covered myself in its blood and wore its head for a hat. You know, so I was getting proper hardcore into the origins of, you know, the Celtic feast of Ihasauna. So I missed the whole thing.
Well, to be honest, you probably had a lucky escape from the rest of the bill, mate. I presume you've subsequently watched the Joshua Takam fight.
I did. I watched it in reverse. So from 12, I started in the 12th round. So it was stopped after 3 rounds. So Jay was right.
Yes. After this finishes, Irish, you're going to have to listen to the first 5 minutes of the show again because, you know, Jay's taken it on the chin and he's apologised. And it would be worth...
As he should. Wasting our time. Yeah. An hour to the 2 shows in a row, an hour saying, no. He'll knock him out in 3 rounds.
Yeah. You know, to be honest, I've said we can forgive, but we cannot forget. So, you know, of course, Jay's forgiven, but it's going to be hard to wipe that from our memories. What was your take? Do you think Takam was a bit better than expected, or do you think Joshua maybe a bit too heavy? Maybe it was the nose injury. I mean, do you think there was a reason that Joshua was maybe a bit subpar?
Look, I don't think the nose. I think the nose hurt him when it happened, but I don't think it impeded him. It didn't look to be bleeding a lot. I didn't see it, like, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, like, I didn't see it, like, between rounds, it to clear it up. And, you know, I just think he got a thud on the nose, which hurt when it happened, and maybe for a round. So I don't see the nose affecting it. I think Takam did as expected, to be honest with you. I think, you know, Takam is... I went and I rewatched the Joseph Parker fight before the fight. I actually was a bit up for that fight, to be honest with you, the Takam fight. But I watched it beforehand. And the thing is with Takam, he's not Joe Frazier, you know? He's not like a Jarrell Miller. He's not in your face kind of a guy. He's actually got some skills and he does a lot of feints and things. And so, like, I just think it shows you that Joshua struggles with movement, full stop, you know? And he even struggled in this fight, you know, albeit he won every round, okay, but he still did struggle a bit with a 6'1" guy who showed some movement and feints. So I think with Joshua, you know, Joshua is a great fighter, but he's a flawed fighter too. And I don't think he handles boxers very well. But his sheer athleticism is able to negate that boxing capability for the guys that he fought so far. I think, you know, if it was a prime Klitschko, so Klitschko is 35, I think Joshua would have lost that fight. And I think, you know, against a good boxer who's not, you know, with not having large physical disadvantages like Takam is, you know, he'll lose a lot of rounds against them. I just don't... I didn't think it was like a terrible Joshua performance. I just think it was... I think it just kind of shows you what he is. You know, that's what Joshua is. You know, these guys are not standing there right in front of him waiting to be hit. If they are standing right in front of him, he'll knock them out. You know, he's a great power puncher. But if guys have got slipperiness and that, you know, he's not going to knock you out so easy because he's not a one-punch knockout artist. Like with Wilder, you can be slippery, and all he needs to do is hit you properly once, and then finish you, like with Spilka. But with, say, Joshua, I'd imagine, you know, someone like Spilka, maybe not the Spilka that's around now, but Spilka at that time could have gone to 12 with Joshua, because, you know, if he's not just standing right there in front of him, Joshua will struggle to knock him out, because he won't catch him with his punch. One punch is not an eraser.
Yeah. No, a lot of sense there, Tom. Who do you think we'll see Joshua match up next with?
Well, I'll tell you what's definitely not happening is Wilder will definitely not happen in 2018. Okay. Bar Wilder looks terrible in his fight against Deontay Wilder. That fight is not happening. Like when Eddie... Huh?
You mean Stavern?
Sorry, what did I say? Areola?
If Wilder looks terrible in his fight with Deontay Wilder. Do you mean
Deontay
crap on the weekend?
Yeah, Stavern. If he looks shit against Stavern, they'll make it next year. And if he doesn't, there's no chance. Because he's a danger man. Think about it, who's less of a danger? A Tyson Fury coming back from 27 stone who won't have punching, he probably won't have the fitness or the punching power. Or someone like Deontay Wilder who has got no trouble going 12 rounds, and if he catches you once, you're essentially in trouble.
Yeah. No, I think you make a fair comment. I think Joshua's kind of got it made commercially, so it's whether they want to take that big risk at this stage when they could easily just milk it for another 2-3 years, you know?
Yeah. I think the thing is, though, like, it's a dangerous one for me for Eddie Hearn, because, like, I think, you know, these other fighters that might get the fight against him, they're all live against Joshua. You know, that's the thing with Joshua. He's kind of a flawed fighter. You know, he's very exciting to watch. He's very dynamic and athletic, but he's got flaws, you know? He gasses. I don't think he's chinny, but I think he can get dropped. Right? I think he's got heart, though. He's got a lot of heart to get up. But I think he gasses, and he's susceptible to a boxer. So, like, you know, somebody like Joseph Parker, while I think is an underdog, I make him a 3-1 underdog. The problem with having a Parker fight versus, say, having a Deontay Wilder fight, the thing is with it, right? If I was Joshua, you have to go to America. I just think it's nonsense not to go to America. Americans see a big dynamic heavyweight like that, and you fight Wilder in America, and you do 1 million pay-per-views. A fight like that can do 1 million pay-per-views in America. You know, and 1 million pay-per-views is an £80 million fight in America versus what will be in England will be a £30 million fight. And once you become that pay-per-view star in America, every fight is going to be an £80 million fight for Joshua, someone like Joshua. So personally, I think they're mad not to move to America and mad not to try that Deontay Wilder fight, because Joshua could get landed on his arse by Joseph Parker. I know people will think that's stupid, or Jarrell Miller. I think there's a reasonable chance if he fights 4 guys in a row that are reasonable, there's a chance that, you know, looking at that fight there, do we think Pulev would have given him problems?
No, because I think Pulev's a very different kind of fighter. I think Pulev would have stood off him and tried to toy with him from range, you know. And I think,
yeah, but
sense that Joshua would have worked out for Joshua.
But I don't know if you would. Like, look at the person who tried to box a range with him, like was like say Brazil. Like Pulev is much better at boxing for range, and in that fight against Brazil, Joshua was swinging and missing a lot just because Brazil would go back a step. I think looking at that, you know, the other thing is I wonder, has that kind of very tough fight with Klitschko taken a step off him? Because, you know, he went to the well.
A bit more tentative, you know. Is he aware of his own vulnerability now?
Well, you know, I think he probably have to be aware of it. But you know, he's an exciting fighter. I just think like that Wilder fight. You know, sometimes these fights they it's like with Amir Khan and and Kell Brook, you know, these fights that don't get made, and then they're dead after a while. What happens if Wilder gets beaten? I just think that is the big fight. And the other thing as well is like, oh yeah, when Eddie Hearn is talking, they're saying, oh, he wants, you know, Joseph Parker, Tyson Fury, and then he'll put Wilder on the end. Anytime he says something like that, you always know the one that's on the end never is the one to get done. So that's, to me, that's just not getting done unless Wilder looks very poor. And these fights, if you don't make them sometime, it's like Terry Flanagan against Crolla. Could be in a pay-per-view fight. They both could have got paid lots of money, and they didn't get it. And then one of them gets beaten, and the arse falls out of it. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that fight. You know, that's one of the #1 fights in world boxing. And don't let anybody tell you any different. It is. And like, don't let these promoters tell you, oh, this guy doesn't sell, that guy doesn't sell. Look at Lomachenko and Rigondeaux sold 20,000 tickets in the Madison Square Garden in like the fastest selling one this year. You know, and that's a purist fight. You know, all the casuals know who Deontay Wilder is probably because he's been on the AJ pay-per-views as a co-commentator. You know, he's been standing there in the studio. So don't let people tell us that that's not fight and they don't know it and it's not as big a fight as this, that, or the other. Because that's the fucking fight we all want.
Yeah, I think that is the consensus #1 and 2 in the heavyweight division, and that would certainly put it into that order, definitely. Okay, cheers for that, Iris. We'll come back to you, of course, in just a minute, guys. Quite a lot of fights to actually get through from last week's boxing. So what I propose is, rather than going to each panelist individually, I'll shout a fight out, and you know, if you watched it, please unmute yourself and bring in. First and foremost, Dillian Whyte versus Robert Helenius. For me, a fight which didn't show either man in the very best of light, and I was left with the distinct impression that Robert Helenius could potentially have pulled the upset if he'd turned up in a bit better shape. What do people think on that matchup?
Shit fight.
Yeah, it turned into a bit of a sparring session, didn't it?
Yeah, Helenius. Ultratech said it was the ghost of Robert Helenius, which is maybe even an understatement. That Robert Helenius was awful after the second round, wasn't he? He was terrible.
Yeah.
I've no interest in talking about this or any of the undercard fights. Absolutely awful.
Yeah. Do you think Dillian Whyte emerges with some credit on the basis that he, you know, got a pretty dominant one-sided win against Robert Helenius, or do you still think he managed to make enough hard work of it doing it?
Thought he made hard work of it. Hard work of it. Yeah, I just thought, you know, Johan Duhaupas, is it, or Duhaupas? He stopped Helenius, and you know, Dillian Whyte. Obviously, I'm not saying he has a ridiculous amount of power, but he has some respectable power. And Robert Helenius after round 2 at all, you know, it doesn't bode well if he wants to face a Deontay Wilder or a you know, any of the top guys, a Jarrell Miller or someone like that. That does not bode well for him. And I think, you know, I've said it before. He's in and a brawler. He says he can box a bit and he can brawl a bit. He's more of a brawler, but he tries to box, and you know, he's similar to Chisora with that, you know, clubbing overhand right. I don't know. I thought that was a Don Charles thing, but obviously Dillian Whyte's picked up on it. So yeah, I just think he'll struggle if he faces one of the top guys. He's in with a chance, I guess. Puncher's chance always, but fundamentally, I think he might just fall up short against the top guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair assessment, Jet. Jay, did you want to get in on that one at all?
I just think Dillian Whyte needs to be, he's a sort of fight that needs to be a little bit more active, needs to do more. It's just, you know, he's out for too long. Great, but I did predict 12 rounds, and that's why I thought it would go, because, you know, but he does need to be more active. For me, the fight at the undercard was Katie Taylor. I mean, she was just phenomenal, and what a phenomenal fight that was. The girl she was fighting was super tough, super tough. But I love to watch Katie Taylor because, her hand speed is electric, and a technique is so good. And for me, that was the fight of the night, which is saying something.
It probably was the fight of the night. Iris, it sounds like there's a...
Shut up. Fucking hell.
Sounds like you're having some sort of, I don't know, battle royale over there.
I'm just trying to draw attention to Dillian White. That was like my gong entrance to like one of these end of level boss scenes in a Bruce Lee in a Bruce Lee film, because I'd never seen, you do watch like say kickboxing or stuff like this, and they do round the house kicks, but has anybody ever seen a boxer doing so many round the house punches as Dillian White? Seriously,
he was winging himself off his feet, wasn't he? If he did that against someone fit, he'd be getting countered all night.
Seriously, it's amazing. Like there was like somebody put together a clip on Twitter, and there were times when like Hellenius was in front of him and he was on the ropes, right? And Dillian White would swing for him and he'd miss. He'd like miss him on the ropes with a big round the house punch. And he'd essentially, a number of times in that fight, I think he went 360. It's like a round the house punch. For fuck's sake. Dillian White is barely above British level. And I tell you what, he shouldn't get any real, he shouldn't get much kudos for that fight, because the man was on 2 weeks' notice, and it showed. Hellenius was the better fighter for the first 3 rounds, probably. Showed better skill. And then he gassed. Simple as.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus, to be honest. What White, very disappointing, really. Didn't really, I think for me, my biggest gripe was he was completely dominant from round 3 onwards. What he was doing was having some effect, but then Hellenius just went into defensive mode, and White showed no variation, no versatility, no plan B, just kept repeating the same losing formula over and over and over again, which for me was disappointing. Tom, did you, Jay just raised... Sorry, go ahead, mate.
Sorry, he also showed no power. This Dillian White power thing's a myth, I think. If you've got a fighter out on the ropes for 9 rounds on the trot, and he's not even fit, and he didn't land one punch where you went, God, he's wobbled, he's in trouble here. Because he landed punches. It wasn't like he was missing all the time around the house punches. He actually did land at some punches. But like Hellenius, who has been knocked out in the past, didn't look in trouble at all.
Yeah, 100%. White's one of these guys, he's looked like he's a big puncher when he's faced journeyman, but actually he's went the distance against Hellenius. He's went the distance against Chisora. Lewison retired. He went the distance against David Allen. When he stepped up to the more sort of British level and above British level standard, the sort of devastating streak of knockouts has come to a swift halt, I guess, which is been fairly evident. Iris, what did you make of? I don't know if you saw the fight. You probably haven't if you weren't watching live. But Jay just mentioned Katie Taylor, fight of the night potentially, a world champion for Ireland.
Well, another Irish takeover is continuing, lads. Dillian White's granny is Irish. Grandfather is Irish. AJ's granny is Irish. Katie Taylor, who I didn't actually manage to catch it because it was the only one I couldn't find online on Sunday when I was trying to watch him. But apparently it was good. But I'd have to see it again. But just the level of the women's boxing is quite low, so it's pretty sad state of affairs if the Katie Taylor fight is the best fight on a card. I wanted to reiterate what you said on your one as well about the commentary on Dillian White. Luckily, I watched the commentary from the American Showtime for the main event, so I didn't have to listen to the talking about it. But they went through every single possible fucking excuse for why Hellenius was shit after 3 rounds, except for the fact that he had 2 weeks' notice.
Correct.
It's fucking seriously. I know everybody kind of gets more annoyed by the commentary they're more used to, but I think the best commentator in England, I don't know what people think about it. I think John Rawling he's vastly superior to the Sky ones. But you know, I think the Sky they've gone down a lot. They're a lot worse now than they used to be.
Carl Froch.
Yeah, it was possibly a new low on commentary. You know, we had the Joe Cordina fight not even shown so that we could have 20 minutes of them building up AJ and talking about how Pulev was 6'7". The thing that the Irish just said about, you know, Hellenius's late notice was absolutely spot on. You know, it really was. The commentators were talking about how good AJ's engine was when to me he looked like he was tired. It was perhaps a new low, in my opinion. And saying that really is something.
Matthew Macklin was the only guy talking sense on the commentary team. The rest were awful.
See, I thought Macklin made a few good points, but when he did, the other guys kind of rounded on him. I don't know if you noticed that yet.
Yeah, they literally were just like, well, but AJ is this. They straight away just started not hugging AJ. I was like, oh.
I remember one of them. I don't know if it's Johnny Nelson or one of the other guys, but I specifically remember one of them saying, oh, what would you have had AJ do then, Matthew? You know, they really like put it on him when he raised a single question when Macklin said AJ looked a bit flat, you know. But there you go. There you go.
No answer to that. No answer to that. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Jay, did you want to get in on any of the other undercard fights, maybe? Maybe Buglioni or Caliafai? Oh, Jay's gone. Other guys on the panel, any further comments on the undercard?
I watched the Caliafai. I thought it was kind of dull, to be honest with you. And you know, these Japanese guys, fighters, they really do show heart when they get their chance at the title. But he was quite limited, and you know, Caliafai, while it wasn't a great performance, I think he did cement his name as the top, flyweight superfly in the world, and I think he's coming to take all those titles.
Wait, you think he's better than Inoue?
He'd beat Inoue and he'd beat Sorungvasai if they had a three-way ladder match.
What about you? You're in the Battle Royale too, I heard.
I am.
What about you, Jet? Where do you stand on Caliafai? You are a bit of a connoisseur of these kind of weight classes.
Yeah, I mean, flat performance wasn't the best. I heard he has like recurring hand injuries, so Eddie Hearn said that his hands went again, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were gone. He boxes about 2 times a year, maximum 3 times a year. And I did hear a rumor that he may be facing someone on the Superfly 2 card, Rungvisai versus Estrada, which is sometime possibly in February. That someone could be Chocolatito, Roman Gonzalez, but cause he's actually mandated by the WBA to face Caliafai. But obviously, if his hands have gone, might not be available for that February date. But you know, he's a good operator. He probably doesn't have the power that he had at the lower sort of levels, but he has some definite boxing skills. I think, you know, he's probably top 3 pound for pound in terms of UK boxers, just skill wise, or maybe top 4. I'd say probably Frampton, Selby, and James DeGale probably. So he's probably just outside. They're probably 4th or 5th or something like that. But he's a very good operator. May lose to someone like Naoya Inoue, but he's probably like, you know, he's in the top 5 definitely there at super flyweight. He's got a belt as well. So yeah, best of luck to him.
Yeah, I think he beats Roman Gonzalez.
Yeah, I think he does too, mate. I think, if I'm honest, just based on size, I think Roman Gonzalez is absolutely tiny at super flyweight. I've said this for a long time. If you go back and check my channel and my videos out, I thought he might win a world title. I thought he got a bit lucky against Quadras. That was a very, very tight fight. Could have gone either way. So yeah, I just feel Caliafai maybe just overwhelming on size. I'm not saying he's a pressure fighter or anything like that, but the size does play a big factor.
Who is he beaten though? Who
He
has he
hasn't
actually
beaten anyone. He beat
nobody?
Concepcion.
Put him in to say he'll beat Roman Gonzalez. Like, it's a big call, even though Gonzalez is on the tail end. Because the only person he's ever beat was a John Real Casimiro. What was his name?
Concepcion.
You know, and he was rubbish when he came over. You know, so like, you know, that Superfly division is pretty stacked. He's probably a top 8 fighter, but that's about all you could say, I think, in that division before he actually beats somebody.
Yeah, I just think that Roman Gonzalez has likely lost a step based on those two fairly brutal fights against Saur Rungvisai. And I just think a guy like Roman Gonzalez, who literally blocks punches with his chin, I do think he would struggle against someone like Kaliafai. I don't think Kaliafai, I personally wouldn't have him in my top 5 pound for pound skill wise in the UK. I don't think he's, I don't have him quite that high, but I just think Yafai is quite well schooled. He's quite technically astute. He's quite accurate, and I just see him catching the older, smaller guy with a lot of miles on the clock over and over again.
Actually, Billy Joe's above him. I just thought of someone else. Billy Joe's above him, yeah. Probably 5th or 6th or something like that in the list. But he's up there. He's definitely got good skills. I think people... he's just not a fashionable fighter, if you know what I mean. And he's in a weight class that's, you know, not the most glamorous weight class either. Well, now it's got kind of more glamorous due to the guys in the weight class. But not many people are going to tune in if he's headlining and that sort of stuff, you know. It's not the glamour division like a heavyweight or something like that.
Yeah, let me try and bring Jay back in because we've had some. I think we've had some IT difficulties with Jay. Jay, I just asked if you had any more comments on the undercard, perhaps Buglioni, etc., and then you dropped off, mate. So you know, if you can unmute yourself, and we'll see if we can bring you back in. Your sewing is on mute, Jay. I think we're having some problems with Jay's connection tonight. So, yeah, you have to bear with us there. Anyone else on the panel got any comments on Buglioni, or, you know, is it too painful and we should just browse over it?
Skip.
Fair. Who saw Bramer versus Bron?
Me.
Take it away.
Bramer did well. You know, he's obviously come down from 175. I thought he might be a bit drained, but he did really well. Obviously, Rob Bront was moving up from 160. Let's face it, he's not a super middleweight. But Bramer looked really good. I thought his timing was good. I thought his his accuracy was really good. He's picking his punches well, and I just thought he did well. I think he'd give on that performance. He'd give Callum Smith a lot of problems.
Definitely. The bookies have opened with Jürgen Bramer as a 9-2 underdog against Callum Smith, which is a real surprise to me because I think Jürgen Bramer is a lot better than Skoglund. What's your take on that, Jet?
Yeah, I think he picks his punches better than Skoglund. Skoglund's a bit more basic, but yeah, I have to say, I'd have to agree with you on that. That's about 4.5 to 1, is it? So 9 to about 4.5 to 1. It's not bad odds, you know. I'd consider lumping down a 5 or a 10 on that because, you know, Bramer's solid. He's very solid. He's got decent power. He's obviously seemed to do the weight well. He used to fight a super middle quite a while ago, but you know, he looked. Rob Bront. I know Rob Bront's obviously not as good as Smith, but you know, Smith's not the greatest. He showed in the first couple of rounds he was decent against Skoglund, but you know, the second and third parts of the fight, he was really, really struggling with Eric Skoglund, and Skoglund's jab is I don't think is as good as someone like Jürgen Bramer's. So yeah, Bramer, you know, barring any sort of Nathan Cleverly again, but I'd expect Bramer to give him a really, really tough test in sort of January, February time.
Yeah, and I think one thing's for sure is that the resume of Nathan Cleverly gets better even in retirement. I know Nathan will probably be watching this after it's uploaded on the channel, but you know, if Jurgen Bremer goes and sweeps the World Boxing Super Series and Tony Bellew knocks out David Hay, you know, we will have two former Cleverly victims soaring right at the top of the sport, which is what I like to see, building up a Hall of Fame resume even in retirement. Tom, did you see the Bremer fight, mate?
I did, yeah. I thought he was brilliant. You know, I thought he just completely schooled him. I only gave Brandt one round. And I just thought it was a boxing masterclass, really. I think, you know, those odds, I think those odds are completely insane. I don't know where that fight's going to be. I'd expect that fight to be in Germany because I think Callum Smith doesn't smell much. He probably smells quite a bit, but he doesn't sell much. Like that, his first round run against Skoglund, I don't know how many. Does anybody know how many thousand was at that? Like 2,000 or 3,000? It's half empty.
It was Liverpool Echo, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was half empty, Jet.
Yeah. I did
like about 5,000.
I saw it. The atmosphere wasn't there either. The atmosphere was very flat at that fight as well.
No, I don't think he's a ticket seller, and so like I kind of expect that probably to be on in Germany because Bremer will sell 20,000 tickets, and
does Rocky Fielding sell more tickets? Just a question to you guys.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He's got a fight against Eric Skoglund in December on the
yeah.
Well, I was just wondering.
9-2 to me. If that's in Germany, like I think it's. If that's in Germany, I make Bremer a slight favourite. I know that people might disagree with me, but like if it's in England, I think probably Bremer will have to win 8 rounds to get it. But if it's in Germany, I'm going on Bremer. I feel like Bremer is much the better boxer, so I think he'll win. But whether he get the decision in England, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question to you guys. Obviously, Eubank is fighting Groves in the other semi. Do you guys think so? Say Eubank wins. Is it like plausible that Bremer could actually box Eubank? Is it plausible?
Well, I hope so because I've got Bremer at 50-1 for a decent stake. I hope so. Do you know what? It's interesting. Look, I'd have to make Eubank a substantial favourite over Jurgen Bremer, but you could certainly make a case that Jurgen Bremer could ask questions of Eubank Jr. I don't know whether Bremer's got it in him to beat Eubank at this stage. My instinct would probably be not. What's your take, Tom?
Well, I'd probably have him a slight favourite, but like, you know, looking at Bremer in that fight against Brand, I know Brand is a lower level guy, but you know, he totally boxed him, and you know, he's a southpaw as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
And so is Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah.
And you know, Bremer knows how to handle himself. He's not going to be intimidated after fighting a 175 by, you know, basically a middleweight. So, you know, I don't think it's an easy fight for Eubank. We might all be shocked. Like, Dwyer might actually be right for once. You know, Bremer might be the man to win it.
Dwyer might be right. Can I get a bit of praise, please, Tom? I was tipping up Bremer at 50-1 only last week on the podcast.
Yeah, but you only did it because I did it about 2 weeks before that when I said to put money on Brand and Bremer at 50 and then sell it off. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. Nice one. Okay.
There's only one BG.
I'll tell you what, Tom, we'll have to do a serious night out if Jurgen Bremer wins this.
I'll have sold the bastard off by then. Don't worry.
Yeah. Let's give Jay one final chance. Jay, Earth to Jay.
Fuck off. Go on. Yeah. What? I haven't heard anything that's been said, so I don't even know where we're at.
Hey, you're loud and clear. Has it just been a bit of an internet nightmare? Is that?
Yeah. My Wi-Fi. Go on.
No. So since you've been out, we've been talking the Joshua undercard. We've talked a bit of Caliafai. We skipped over Frank Buglioni, to be completely frank. We've been talking a bit of Bramer versus Rob Braun. Anything you want to get in on any of those fights at all, mate?
It's not a middleweight at all. A super middleweight, sorry. Just looked really too light. You know, I think his game plan was obviously to come in, use his speed. But I think when you find someone like Bramer, and his counter punching was totally on point. And as the fight went on, Bramer obviously had no respect at all for Brand's power. So he'll go on to the semis to fight Smith, but he won't have the physical advantages that he possibly did in the first round against Smith. So I'm not sure how that's going to go, really. But I've seen some people saying he beat Smith and then beat Eubank on points, but I wouldn't like to say at this point. And Kalify is a really good technical fighter, really good. I think he's progressing. He has got problems with his hands, limits what he does, but whether he beat Roman Gonzalez, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I think that's a good question, but that's going to be a fight that propels his career to new heights, I guess. But there you go. Right. Sorry, mate.
So just to say, the fight he needs, really. It's a definite fight he needs. A definite for that. You know, that stature and profile. So yeah.
I hear you. Okay, cool. Let's move it on. Unless just before we do, let me ask: has anyone else got any comments to add on any of the other fights from last week before we move it on and discuss some of the news in the sport? Let's move it on then. So, guys, Frank Warren has started to populate his December the 9th bill featuring Selby and Gale. We're still waiting for opponent announcements for both of those guys. But in the interim, he has announced former Anthony Joshua and Hughie Fury victim Dorian Darts to be the next opponent to face Daniel Dubois, who Warren has also described as the best heavyweight prospect he's been involved with throughout his entire career. And also Anthony Yard versus former Callum Smith and Arthur Abraham victim Nikolai Sezloka. What's your thoughts on these matchups, guys? Uninspiring matchmaking, sensible step-ups, or potentially even good fights? Where do you stand on these fights?
War Dodge.
War Dodge. Yeah. Can Sezloka be to take Yard the distance?
No. I think going to Dorian Darts, it's saw from the opponent he took on in the first round. I think it's kind of very
Jay,
the same.
I'm sorry, mate. It's not workable. Yeah, Jay, I can't even get a word you're saying now, mate.
Do you know what? You know what it is, Gossip? Jay is too scabby to pay for his own internet, so he's trying to hijack off his neighbour's internet. But it's, you know, it's 2 doors down that he's got the password for, and he's not able to get a good signal.
Oh God!
I know he lost a lot of money betting on Josh Sheeran side 3. So yeah, but there you go. Jay's dropped off, so that might be the last of him tonight, I'm afraid, which is a shame. But yeah, obviously, if we can't hear him, there's not much more we can do on that. So, Tom, what are your thoughts on those matchups, mate?
Well, the Sezloka one, I think that's a good step up. It's probably about the right type of step up for him. Who was Sezloka beaten, or he's gone rounds with who again? Cam Smith, so is it?
He drew with Rob Felix last time out.
Okay.
He got a win over Hadilla Mohammadi, and he's gone the distance with the likes of Callum Smith, Tyrone Zoiga, Arthur Abraham, etc.
You know, so that's, you know, I think he's a proper. That's the type of fight that Yard has been needing to take.
Yeah, he's not really.
I think it's a good fight.
That's
I think
that's the problem. He's not really a light heavyweight.
Okay, he's not light heavyweight. Sorry. Yeah, but okay. Well, it's I think it's probably the toughest fight of his career so far. Most of the guys he'll be fighting at say area level and that, those guys won't be professionals, so they won't be able to drain down. So they're going to be smaller guys as well. So I think it's just a decent progressive fight for him. I think the Dorian Darch one, is probably also a step up. But he's so young, man. It's equivalent to what Joshua is doing in 4 or 5 fights. So don't have any problems with them two. I think that's a good card. I'm thinking of going to that card. I think that's going to be a decent card. I haven't been to the comment box before, so I'm thinking of going to that one.
Nice one. Yeah. Could be a good call. I'm sure Frank will announce some some more good fights for it as well. Maybe even get the pig out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jet says Locker, respectable on box track. Are we potentially talking a walking punch bag? What's your take, mate?
Yeah, he's a punch bag. I just want to see the Hosea Burton fight.
Yeah, so Zlotka's mixed it at a higher level than Burton, but Zlotka, you couldn't even give him an argument of a round when he fought Smith. Like, it's hard to make me think he's going to step up a weight class and have more ambition and more success against Anthony Yard.
Yeah, Yard should just be fairly competent there. He'll show off his flashy skills, and if he hurts Serge Locker, then he'll probably just end up stopping him. He's a decent enough finisher. So,
do you think Dorian
fight for?
Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't realise you were carrying on. Go on.
No, it's a good step up fight for him. It's a good name for his record, and maybe someone potentially to take him, a fair few rounds if he'll be there to survive. I think Serge Locker. So, about Dart, sorry.
What about Darts? Do you reckon he's the man who could give Dubois rounds? I've got to say, I'm dubious at this point.
You've got to be careful. You can't piss off the Daniel Dubois fanboys. So, the less said about Daniel Dubois, the better. But War Darch.
What? Yeah, Daniel Dubois fanboys are, next level. I've got a message.
Jack, sorry, go ahead, Gus. Sorry.
No. I was just saying, Daniel Dubois fanboys really are the new. We talk about Irish takeover. If the fanboys are to be believed, Daniel Dubois will be winning the World Heavyweight Championship and standing for president by the end of 2018. But there you go. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm so is Jet not a fan now of Dubois? I never said I was a fan or I wasn't a fan.
You're saying War Darch, so.
Yeah, War Darch.
I think Dubois looks like he looks like an AJ level talent to me.
Oh, Irish, guess what I'm listening to right now? Your mate, Rio Takeover, Rio Ferdinand.
Well, the Irish takeover is continuing, lads. Continuing.
Could be Rio versus Dubois. You never know.
Strange. Dubois doesn't want that power.
No, I
Rio
don't.
will move up from light heavyweight to he'll do a Roy Jones Jr.
Let me ask you guys about this Eddie Hearn offer to Deontay Wilder. Eddie Hearn has offered $3 million plus US TV money for Wilder to fight Dillian White. Wilder's counter-offered that he wants $7 million all in. Hearn has said that he's going to put out another offer that won't be $7 million, but it'll be something above his initial offer. That's kind of like a meet in the middle offer. Do you think there's a realistic chance of getting Deontay Wilder over to fight Dillian White for that kind of money? And do you think we'll see progress here, or do you think those negotiations will peter out?
after that stoppage, I highly doubt it.
Well, like, do you know what I think is like? It really annoys me in this, right? Because Dillian White, he can sell a fight. Deontay Wilder can talk. He can sell a fight. I think that does huge pay-per-view in England numbers. What do people think?
Yeah, I think that could do. Well, the thing is, Dillian White, like, it's hard because they're both unproven commodities in terms of leading UK pay-per-views. But I certainly think that could do equivalent to like a Bellew Hay, you know, sort of 750, that sort of numbers.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even be surprised if it did 1 million. You know, I think that those two guys are brilliant talkers, and you know, let's just say it does 1 million just for ease of use, just ease of numbers, right? If it's a 20, if it's £1 million pay-per-view, £20 a pop, it's £20 million fight with probably $1 million or 2 on the gate. It's a £22 million. Sky take probably 30% or 40%. You got £15 million to play with. Okay, and people are complaining that your man is looking for $7 million because he didn't get it before. Like, what type of nonsense is that? He's by far and away the A side.
I think $1 million is very ambitious, though, Tom. Like, you know, this isn't Anthony Joshua. Yeah. He doesn't have a fan base.
Yeah, well, let's assume. I'm only just saying say $1 million because it's easier to deal with the numbers, right? Right. Let's say there's 15 million left over from a million, right? So let's say it's 600,000. There's probably going to be 10 million there, sterling, you know, which is probably what, $12 million, something like that. Now, if it's a $12 million fight for the two boxers, it should be $9 million to Deontay Wilder and $3 million to Dillian fucking White. You know what I mean? $3 million to Dillian White, who doesn't deserve. He's not a mandatory. He's a voluntary. You know, he's a British level to European level fighter. He's doing well. All these people are saying like that. You know, Wilder should take the $3 million because it's more than he ever got paid. It's bullshit. It's the exact same argument with GGG. Why GGG shouldn't have taken a flat fee. It should be a percentage of it, you know. And if Dillian White, if Wilder is looking for a large flat fee, given it, you know, because I don't see, you know, some Jazz in the chat is saying if it's even 500k buys, Wilder should get 7 mil. I kind of agree with it, you know. And anyway, the thing is, who the hell wants to see that fight though? Apart from all the hype it'll be sold over here, there's much better fights to be made in the heavyweight division. Why the hell does Wilder have to fight him, White? Why can't Wilder fight him now? You know, that's just another. That's like Lewis Ortiz, and it's just bullshit. We want to see the best fights. We don't want to see these sort of bullshit fights.
Yeah, I mean,
fans.
I would like to see that fight. Dillian White. I agree with you that Dillian White is not an elite level talent, but the thing is, in the context of today's heavyweight division, he is on the peripheries of the top 10, and
he's not.
Kind of is, mate. If you actually look at it, I'm not saying we list out the top 10 here, but you know, he's certainly in the top 15. You know, because there just isn't.
I don't know
that many talents.
Top 15.
You got a load of people banned for performance-enhancing drugs. You got a guy here who's beaten Derek Chisora and beaten Robert Helenius. You know, he is in that mix. You know,
he drew with the ghost of Derek Chisora, and he beat a 2-week notice coming off a knockout.
Yeah, I know. Neither were impressive performances, but on his record, he's got the wins over both of those guys.
If you ask me, White is between a 20 and a 30 or 40 ranked fighter. But we're just exposed to him more than we were exposed to other people. Like, you know, I think anybody in the top 10, I don't see him beating anybody in the top 10. I don't make him a favourite, and I don't really give him a chance against anyone in the top 10. That kind of, I don't know, I just, you know, we get in our bubble over here because we're used to these fighters, and there's other heavyweights fighting and people around the world fighting, and, you know, we see the ones all the time and we think they're better than they are because we're exposed to them.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. I still do think it'd be an entertaining fight. I mean, it might be a fight where the build-up is better than the actual fight itself. But, Deontay Wilder, unfortunately, has taken a number of fights that are slightly disappointing. And some of that may be his fault, some of it may not be his fault. But I've got to be honest and say I'd rather see Wilder White versus Wilder Stavern rematch.
Oh, so would I, because we've seen one of them before. But is Dillian White better than John Molina? Is he better than Duhaupas?
He's better than Eric Molina. Yeah, and he's a lot better than Eric Molina, and he's probably better. Yeah, than Duhaupas. Yeah.
He's much. I don't think he's. I think they're all the same. All of those. Actually, I think Dillian White's worse than them. I think Eric Molina is a better fighter. I think Duhaupas was a similar level fighter. These are the people that were bitching about Deontay Wilder fighting.
I don't think Eric Molina would beat.
Spilka would.
Yeah.
Spilka would have beaten him. Duhaupas knocked out Helenius. White didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think he's vastly overrated. And we're just used to him. He's a good talker. That's why he makes the money. Fair play to him. But, people that tell him all this bullshit, these people that make arguments one way and then they change it the other way. The amount of people that are, fans of promoters. Can you imagine people being fans of Don King? Fuck me. What the hell is that about?
No, I agree, and I'm one of these who doesn't think Deontay Wilder should be pressured into taking that offer. I agree with your sentiments that he deserves a bigger slice of the pie than that, and he's completely the A side. Jet, do you see that fight happening, or whether it should happen or not? Realistically, is it going to happen?
Not sure, mate. Not sure. Dillian is the WBC silver champ, so he's actually. I think he's quite high up in the WBC rankings. Might even be number one. So if it is a mandatory, I could see it happening.
I think he's number 3, but I think Stavern is number 1, who's obviously fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
And I think number 2 may well be Luis Ortiz, who is obviously serving a ban, as I understand it.
Yeah,
so
they're probably mandating.
He will likely be the mandatory, I guess.
Yeah, if it's a mandatory, then I'd probably see it. It's more likely to happen. But if it's not and it's a voluntary, I think it'll be tough for Dillian and Eddie Hearn to kind of negotiate and come to a respectable term for both guys. So yeah, if it's a mandatory, yes. If not, it's less likely.
Yeah. Okay. I think Dillian White is kind of in a bit of a difficult situation at present.
Sorry, go on, Gossip.
No, you go first. You go ahead, mate.
Yeah, I just read something on Boxing Scene just before we came on air. Povetkin versus Hammer is a final eliminator for the WBO belt. So the winner will face Joseph Parker for his belt. So that's just a bit of news there.
That is interesting. Well, so we could be looking at Parker Povetkin in Russia, presumably.
Yeah, possible. His promoter Rybinski is filthy rich, so yeah, possibly a drug cheat winning a world title.
Yeah, that's a very difficult fight for Joseph Parker for me. Although with Povetkin, it's kind of hard to know how good he is, because if we say that he'll be entering the ring without any meldonium in his system, kind of interesting to find out. If he's still the same Povetkin who we've seen look so devastating in his more recent fights.
Yeah, if it's the same one that turned up against Mike Perez and absolutely iced him in one round, then yeah, it's possible. But hopefully, I don't want to see Povetkin win. He's he's been, for me, it seems like he's been a cheat for a long time. So I just wouldn't like to see him
Christian Hamer isn't beating Povetkin though, is he?
Yeah. I hope Parker, finds another gear or something like that if Povetkin's on the juice or whatever, and beats him because Povetkin doesn't deserve another belt for me.
Lads, I've got a question for you. Povetkin is fighting AJ in the morning. Who's the favourite?
What? Who's the favourite, or who should be the favourite? What percentage chances do you give Povetkin? Are we okay to use the Povetkin we saw last time out?
Yeah, this Povetkin.
Okay. Well, the problem is, let's assume Povetkin will now be completely free of meldonium. He may not be the same fighter, so that's an unknown commodity. But if we assume that Povetkin is the same fighter we've seen in the ring, I make Povetkin a 60% favourite.
Jet?
60. Probably go about 35%.
I'm a gossip on this. I think Povetkin beats AJ.
You reckon? Jesus.
I think he'll be able to box well. He'll hit hard enough, and he doesn't gas. And I think he'll catch AJ. I don't think AJ will be able to run through him.
But on the same notion, Vlad caught him multiple times and dropped him multiple times. That's what I'm thinking when you brought that up. So I was just thinking of going back to the Vlad fight. So that's the only reason I give AJ such a 65%, because I just think he's so much bigger. And if he's Povetkin's going to try and box from range, AJ will catch him fairly regularly.
That was one of Vladimir Klitschko's best performances, because what he did was put on like a sort of disciplined to perfection performance that, on his toes, constant jab, complete shutdown of Povetkin on the inside. I just don't think AJ does that. No, AJ may have some success in various ways, but his jab is not as disciplined as Vlad's. The way he wouldn't be able to close down Povetkin on the inside, and I do think Povetkin would just catch him. I really do. I mean, but Povetkin, he is a small guy who's nearing 40, who's had some drug controversies. He may turn up and be a completely different fighter to the fighter we've seen knocking out Takam and knocking out Perez and knocking out Manuel Char. And if that's the case, then clearly AJ would be a favourite. But, based on the Alexander Povetkin we've seen in recent fights, I think Povetkin could quite easily be the #1 heavyweight active in the world.
The thing is, Klitschko in that performance should have been disqualified for the holding. One of the worst cases of holding I've ever seen in my life. So but I think Povetkin, he's got genuine power. He's probably the second hardest hitter in the division after Deontay Wilder, and he's got a very good gas tank and a very good chin. And when AJ gasses, I think he'll just be able to knock him out. I don't expect that to go to points. I think Povetkin would knock him out. I'm surprised about that now. But after that performance, it's kind of becoming evident about AJ's gas tank that when he's up there against fellas who can actually punch him back, his legs fall off. And you've got a guy like Povetkin up there until he carries power late, I think AJ's in a lot of trouble. That's a very dangerous fight.
Yeah. Povetkin may be the hardest puncher as far as I'm concerned, because, if you look at the names that Wilder's actually knocked out, the best fighters Wilder's knocked out are the guys like your Gerald Washingtons, your Arthur Spilkers, etc. Povetkin's streak of knockouts is, is fairly impressive for my money.
Perez.
Yeah.
DePaul.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. And the way he's knocked them out, they were chilling knockouts, some of them as well. So
yeah. But look, I'm no PED expert, etc. I don't know what effects on the body meldonium has, but Povetkin's got a great chin. Povetkin's got great power. Povetkin's got a great engine. will he still have those attributes aged 40 without the benefits of that jug? That's an open question. I don't know. But unless Alexander Povetkin has faded by, 40, 50%, then for my money, he beats Christian Hamer. And, you'd certainly have to make him a favourite over Joseph Parker for me. But it's a great fight. If I don't like to see Povetkin successful in the sport because I think it's a bad look for boxing with some of the controversy that surrounded him. But I do think Povetkin Parker is a genuine, exciting fight.
Yeah, that'll be a bit of a war.
Yeah. So you were sorted out for the WBO version, right, Jack?
Yeah. It said on Boxing Scene. You know what? I'm going to double check again.
Yeah.
It was on Boxing Scene saying it's been mandated by the WBO winner to face Parker. So let me just double check. You carry on while I have a look.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting because I guess if Povetkin does go down the WBO route, that kind of keeps him well away from Wilder and Joshua for the time being, and Povetkin will be tied up like that for a good while. And I guess by the time he'd become available to fight the likes of a Wilder or Joshua, he'd be.
Yeah, it's definitely for the WBO belt. Povetkin versus Hammer finalized. Winner gets Joseph Parker shot.
Do you know what? Alexander Povetkin, he has got one thing. He has got is a very, very, very underrated resume. It really is an underrated resume. I'm just going to read you a few names of people that he's beaten: Ruslan Chigayev, Marco Huck, Hasim Rahman, Manuel Char, Carlos Takam, Mike Perez, Marius Wok, Johan Depar, Andre Rudenko, Eddie Chambers, Chris Bird, real, and that's just a flick through, but real strong resume. There isn't a heavyweight active in the division with a resume as deep as Alexander Povetkin's, and whether his legacy is tainted or not, this is a guy with a lot of pretty elite experience, and he shouldn't be underestimated. He's a big puncher, and I believe he's actually an Olympic gold medalist, so he's got that kind of amateur background as well. But there you go. Any more comments on that story, guys? So we move on and have a look ahead to next week.
Fire away.
Wilder versus Stiverne. Method of victory, guys.
Wilder points.
Wilder KO.
I'm Wilder KO. Jet, why points? Just because it was points last time?
Yeah, I think Stiverne is fairly durable, and you know what? He didn't look. I might change my mind on a day. Look at the weigh-in, but Stiverne fairly durable. I know he got dropped by Derek Rossi, but fairly durable. So I think Wilder might just box from range again. But I guess I'll see the weigh-in and see how Stiverne weighs in, and if he looks in shape and whatnot. So I changed my mind on the day, but I stick my neck out and say Wilder on points, just because I think he'll be a bit more disciplined than he has done, a windmilling in his last few fights.
Interesting. I just think that, and I don't know what kind of shape Stiverne's in, but he's a guy who hasn't kept himself in the best condition outside the ring. He's been completely inactive for 2 years. He hasn't really had a meaningful fight since when he last fought Deontay Wilder, which was nearly 3 years. He's in his very late 30s. I just find it hard to believe he looked terrible against Derek Rossi. I think Stiverne will have lost a step since last time he's in the ring. And I also think that Wilder beatdown would have taken a lot out of him. I don't see him going 12 against Deontay Wilder. I think Wilder might beat him earlier than a lot of people think in this fight. Tom, is that how you see it, mate?
Sorry, say again, just the last bit.
I think the fight could actually go a lot earlier than people think. Doesn't surprise me if Wilder wins in 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, I think so. If he took a big beating off Wilder in that fight, and you go through a 12-round beating by a power puncher. It takes it out of you, and he's looked crap ever since. And I watched some of his not sparring footage, but his training footage. It didn't look great. So I just expect Wilder just to knock him out this time.
I think so. On the undercard, Molina versus Dominic Breazeale. I'm going with Dominic Breazeale. I think he's bigger. I think he's got a lot more left to offer in the sport, and I think he's the guy who can, get back into the mix in the heavyweight division. I think Molina is faded and has a lot more miles on the clock and possibly less to offer at this stage. What are you guys saying on that?
Breazeale, but don't care.
Don't care, really. It'd probably be a good scrap, though, but it's one of those ones where with Molina, you don't know who you're getting. Breazeale is teak tough, though, as well, and he does bring some power, so I reckon that could be a great fight.
He had a he had a good win last time out against Izu Agonu, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Breazeale. Yep. Sean Porter versus Adrian Granados. Actually, quite an interesting fight that's been added to the undercard. I quite like Adrian Granados, but I have to pick Sean Porter here. For me, he's the guy who, has the ability to mix it at the higher levels. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is probably the best fight on the card, to be honest. Porter probably just, I think he's just got a bit more to offer at the high level. He's a ferocious pressure fighter, absolutely ferocious, and he sits on your chest. He's a nuisance to fight against. I thought he won but obviously didn't get a decision. But performed with credit in both of his defeats, the Brook one and the Thurman fight. So I think he's got a bit more to offer. Granados did well against Broner, I think, last time out. So it should be a bit of a war, but I'd say Porter will probably take it.
You can get 11-8 on Porter to win by KO.
That might be an interesting bet.
Yeah, not a bad shout, actually. Not a bad shout.
I think he's... Because Yaman is a 140 fighter, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sean Porter is a beast. I think that's great value.
He's physically well built for 147. He's a bit small in height, but he looks like a monster at the scales.
He beat Alexander Usyk in the amateurs.
No clue how. I think he campaigned a few weight classes above his
I think he campaigned as light heavyweight. Yeah.
Crazy.
Who?
Crazy.
Sean Porter?
Yeah.
He was a middleweight. I know he was definitely a middleweight anyway in the amateurs.
Yeah. But I think he'll probably win that one. Could be the fight of the night, as Jet says. Lenroy Thomas also on the bill, facing 14-10 Mike Bissett. Could be one to have an eye on to see what kind of condition Lenroy's in ahead of the rematch with Dave Allen in December. But obviously, we're not going to analyse the whys and wherefores of Lenroy Thomas versus Mike Bissett. Let's have a look over at Eddie Hearn's Monaco bill. I'm going to admit that I saw McDonald Solis one, so I'm up to date on that rematch. The rest of the bill, I haven't seen Quigg's opponent. I haven't seen Bivol's opponent. And despite best efforts, I've been really struggling to actually find meaningful footage of Chisora's opponent, Kabayel. So I'm kind of shooting in the dark a little bit with regard to this card. McDonald Solis, my instinct is telling me to pick McDonald, even though I do think Solis probably was very unlucky last time out. Are you guys looking forward to this bill?
It's semi-decent, They're not fantastic fights and stellar fights, but they're decent fights. I guess some boxing is better than nothing, I guess. At least it's at primetime UK. We don't have to stay up to watch Wilder versus Steve Burns. So, it's not too bad. Bivol is is a fantastic prospect. I think it's for the vacant WBA regular or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, I expect Bivol to win that one. McDonnell, I think, should put in a better performance this time. I think he looks very dry though at bantamweight, 118 pounds. I think he looks very, very dry. So maybe a move up 2 weight classes would be in his best interest. There's not much money at super bantamweight now that Rigo is actually fighting Lomachenko at 130 pounds. So maybe featherweight might be a better option for him. What was the other one? Scott Quigg, don't care about him. He's boring. Derek Chisora, I haven't seen anything of his opponent, but hopefully Chisora is actually in shape. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I noticed the bookmakers had that Chisora Kabayel fight as a somewhat competitive fight, which is interesting. There must be at least some chance that fight is, that fight is potentially an upset, because usually Chisora.
Yeah, I was on the chat earlier, and shout out to some of the guys on there, Modern Broadcast and some others as well. They were saying Kabayel's decent, but he's very, very, very basic. He's got some decent. He does some things decent, but he's very basic. So I can only go on what they've said. I guess they might have seen more of him than us. So yeah, I mean, if Chisora turns up in shape, he's a handful for anyone, isn't he? So, or for most of the guys like in and around that Euro scene. So yeah, let's hope he turns up in fairly decent shape and can win the EBU. He'll get highly ranked with the EBU as well if he wins that. So he'll get ranked quite well with the 4 governing bodies. Might put in title shot. Obviously he's with Eddie, so he loves a domestic dust up. You know what's coming next? AJ versus Chisora pay-per-view.
Oh.
Yeah. I sense your enthusiasm, Gossip.
I'd watch White Chisora. I'd watch Price Chisora. I'd watch Dubois Chisora or Joe Joyce Chisora, or even Nathan Gorman Chisora or Huey Fury Chisora. But I don't think I want to see AJ Chisora. Chisora is one of these guys, like, he's kind of like a worse version of Cam. He's a solid enough fighter. He'll cause problems at some sort of level. But every time he's come up against European level and above, he's just come up short. And he's never been able to work on any of the obvious mishaps in his game. And, he's an old dog now. And it's hard to think he's going to learn new tricks at this stage. But there you go. Tom, what's your thoughts on this Monaco bill, mate? Is there anyone you're going to have an eye out for in particular?
No, I think it's a fairly reasonable. You got Jamie McDonald 2-5, Derek Chisora 4-7, and then the other 3 fights are Scott Quigg. Who's this Amanda Serrano? Oh, that's a woman fighting, is it? Okay, and Bivol. Maybe 2 decent fights on it. Just kind of. I don't understand what is Dimitri Bivol doing on an Eddie Hearn card? He's not been signed, has he?
No, what they do, Irish, I think they have like agreements to just work together, and it's not like the Frank Warren James DeGale one, but he has to deal with HBO now with Danny Jacobs and that sort of stuff. So it was normally on HBO, so they probably try to get him on and beef the show up a bit or something like that.
But this card is getting broadcast on HBO, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that the Dimitri Bivol fight will definitely get broadcast by HBO. I'm not sure about the other ones, but that fight will definitely get broadcast. Maybe the quick one because Freddie Roach is his trainer, so maybe. But definitely the fight will be on HBO.
This Scott Quigg is out again. I'm going to get in some abuse on my Twitter line when I slag him off again. Who wants to see Scott Quigg?
Carl Frampton.
Yeah.
Pay-per-view rematch.
Quigg is, in fairness to Quigg, he's kind of lost a bit there, isn't he? Will he get any of the names? It looks like they've all gone over to Frank in his division, domestically. So he's kind of lost there. And I don't know if any of you saw Scott Quigg being interviewed lately. Man, he's starting to slur his speech. Did you hear him on IFL there the last time?
No, I haven't.
I know this is absolutely terrible, but I don't tend to watch Scott Quigg interviews because they don't tend to reveal anything particularly enlightening. So I haven't actually tuned into one for probably since the Frampton fight, if I'm honest, mate.
No, well, he was a good interview because he was telling us about there's a new range of fire trucks out from Duplo. So it was pretty good.
I don't follow, but I presume it was some joke that was too intellectual for my...
much too intellectual.
Yeah.
Duplo is like the beginners, is like Lego for 3-year-olds.
Ah, there you go. You can tell which one of us has kids, eh? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, but I always question that move to Freddie Roach. A guy like Scott Quigg, the last thing he needed was to go to Freddie Roach. He's become even more of a, sort of mindless, come-forward fighter since that. And, yeah, you wonder, the opportunity for him to make money was being matched up against the likes of a Josh Warrington or a Lee Selby. Yeah, even that Lee Selby fight, it may not have worked out well for him style-wise, but at least it was a big fight, Whereas now, he is kind of in no man's land. And that's why he's fighting on this Monaco bill.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised now. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually signs for Frank, because it would make kind of more sense to go to where the other fighters are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It's hard to know on how many year contract someone like Scott Quigg would be on, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps ship, because when all the fighters are on the other side, what are you going to do? You're going to get no big fight. He's going to be sitting there on undercards. If you think about it, Monaco is the graveyard for matchroom fighters. Who gets sent to Monaco? It's like Gavin McDonald. What do you call you, man? Is it Martin Murray? It's the fighters who can't headline on themselves and don't sell that many tickets get sent out, there. So I think it's kind of unfortunate for Scott Quigg the way it's kind of just managed to develop.
I was going to say maybe Eddie Hearn could make Scott Quigg Kip Galahad, but thinking about it, they both want 6-figure paydays, and neither of them would sell out any arena. And, it's not a fight that the broadcaster's going to be buzzing to put on, is it? So you wonder if even a fight like that is kind of hard to make without real investment from the promoter.
Yeah, neither of them are too big a ticket seller, so, and to be honest with you, I keep saying it, but I find Scott Quigg kind of boring to watch. I really do. Even though he's kind of high output, but it's kind of mindless, I find.
Yeah. No, I agree. He just, despite the fact he's sometimes involved in good action, he kind of lacks a charisma inside the ring that kind of mirrors the lack of charisma outside of the ring, unfortunately. But, I kind of feel a bit sorry for him. He had that fight against Carl Frampton, and I know Irish and I go back and forth on this, but I still think he could have won that fight. And, it's just been a huge downhill from there. One of the worst tactical performances I've ever seen from a trainer in that fight. And it's just changed the course of his career dramatically. But anyway, we digress. We've actually come to the end of the list of stuff to get through tonight. Obviously, the biggest topic was probably the stuff last week. But let me just ask the other guys on the panel, is there anything else you want to get in, or any other topics or stories to raise before we move to wrapping it up for the week?
What do we have next week? Do we have anything else?
Smith
we've got Josh Taylor.
Or is that the week after?
That's the week after. And Josh Taylor is fighting with Miguel Vasquez. Who's this Miguel Vasquez guy?
Miguel Vasquez is a former champion. If I recall, he was on pound-for-pound lists at one point. He was due to fight Ricky Burns in a unification match. Like I think he fought Mayweather's lightweight, Mickey Bay maybe, but a very sort of tall, awkward, technical, slippery fighter. Jet will know more.
Yeah, he held the IBF title. He's a decent fighter. I think you're right. He did fight Mickey Bay. Yeah, he lost the split decision to Mickey Bay. He beat Algenis Mendez, who fought Luke Campbell. He lost against him. He beat Dennis Shafikov.
He lost on his debut. On his debut, he lost against Saul Alvarez on a split decision.
Yeah, Canelo. Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's a decent fighter. You know,
he fought Canelo again 2 years later, and he lost a unanimous decision. And his other loss was Timothy Bradley Jr. Early on in your career.
He beat Bradley Prescott when Prescott was undefeated, and he knocked out Amir Khan.
Did he actually fight Canelo twice, Tom?
He did, yeah, and he lost UD in a split decision.
Bloody hell! Wow.
He's a decent fighter, Vasquez. But he shouldn't be. You know, Josh Taylor. If we think Josh Taylor's the goods, he should be. I wouldn't say he's going to walk through Vasquez because he seems like a tough guy, but you know, I'd expect him to, you know, do a real number on Vasquez. Josh Taylor is good, and I expect him, you know, to win. Maybe a late stoppage if he does get a stoppage, or points. I'd probably say points.
Well, I don't know what Miguel Vasquez has got left, but he's only 30 years old. You know, he's kind of like this faded fighter now. But, you know, the best of Miguel Vasquez would represent a monumental step up for Josh Taylor.
Yeah. 11, is it 10th fight or 11th fight? So, yeah. He doesn't have much power, though, so, yeah. I guess I don't think he's going to stop him, and he's moving up a weight class, so probably not his natural weight class. Josh Taylor should, you know, if we, you know, from what we've seen of him, if he's any good, he should be dealing with a Vasquez at this stage of his career.
Interesting. That could be a revealing fight. I suspect Miguel Vasquez will make Taylor look very raw in spots. But yeah, whether Miguel Vasquez has enough left, I actually think it's quite poor matchmaking. Actually, I think it's a potential banana skin, and even if it isn't a banana skin, I think it's a fight that could make Taylor look, you know, very, very poor, and probably be a stylistically very poor match. So I think it's poor matchmaking, but we shall see. And yeah, the two Liams, Liam Smith versus Liam Williams. I like Liam Smith in that fight, actually. I'm surprised Liam Williams is going into it as a favourite again, after what happened last fight. But I guess last fight is a fight that the people see differently, you know, in terms of you know, who they thought was ahead and how they thought that fight was going.
Yeah, I think that's not. I think that's next week or the week after. It's on the 18th or something like that, isn't it? Possibly.
Yeah. 11th for Smith Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. 11th. You said so next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Next. Yeah, not this Saturday after.
Yeah. Williams. Mate, that guy gasses after a couple of rounds. So, yeah, Liam Smith probably in that fight. I'd say I'd pick Smith in that fight.
Interesting. We can certainly cover that again next week. Right, Jet. Before we call it a night, mate. Anything else from you?
Nothing for myself, mate.
Good stuff. Irish, mate.
I can't think of anything at all. No.
Fantastic. Well, I've enjoyed it, guys. Thanks to you both for giving up your Wednesday evenings, as always. Thanks to Jay for trying your level best, although unfortunately wasn't quite good enough in terms of the connection tonight. Getting a nice musical sign-off from Irish Tom, which is as always appreciated. Thanks to the guys. who've been watching since the start. Thanks to all the guys keeping it live and moving in the chat. 113 hit the thumbs up button. Thanks to everyone who's done that. If you're watching this after it's been uploaded to the channel, please continue to support by hitting the thumbs up button. Press subscribe. Please check out Jet's channel, Boxing Discussions, and press subscribe there. And other than that, wish you all a good week, and we'll be back next Wednesday. Cheers, guys.
Happy Wednesday.
There's only one BG. War Dodge.
Only one BG.